The global threat of the Great Reaving finally over, Zerotherma having since turned inward on itself like a pack of rabid dogs, history, in a sense, resumed. In February of 1939, General Vicario Lucchini, under the direction of his personal advisor, Renatsu Pazziate himself, launched what was termed the February Reclamation. This was a full-scale invasion of South Avarignia. This war was inaugurated with speeches from both sides. General Lucchini began, in the southernmost Avarignian province of Fez, "There is only one Avarignia, and only one people called Avarignian. Ancient, enduring, and united against an entire world which is not like us. That is why the rebellious monarchists of the South are so repugnant. They keep the people divorced from each other, and against the will of nature, and the will of our immemorial gods. This war will be the defining victory of our societal beast, will give it back its claws. Now then, a chill wind blows south, and the weeds there will wither and die. One race, one nation, one flag." This speech would come to be known as the 111 speech, and the 3 1s became an enduring symbol of Avarignian ultranationalism, many soldiers and even civilians getting them tattooed on the side of their neck or over their hearts. Meanwhile, Rex Tarkhan and Dechitas Deostum staged a speech in his capital city of Oran. "By the name of Similchi and Dechita, the blessed Cheliatus, the founder of our kingdom and its people, we will do her honor. The sacred ancestor, the intercessor of every Avarignian heart which beats for her ancient command for the crown of a united people. Our wayward brothers, our castaway sisters will be brought back into the fold, as the loving embrace of the Cheliatus is not so easily denied. We have fought before, so shall we fight again, for the continued sanctity of this royal line and the prosperity of Similchi's persistent nation. Onward, unto death, for our eternal and celestial queen." This speech proved especially rousing to the people of South Avarignia, as despite their comparative poverty, the infantry division of the military swelled to nearly double its original size in the lead-up to hostilities, larger than even the hyper-militarized industrial powerhouse that was Avarignia. Speaking of which, as the militaries of the 2 armies positioned themselves for war, the South Avarignians were caught off guard by an unusual sight: combined arms divisions, supported by a brand new air wing. Flight, having been perfected in 1930, remained relatively unpopular as anything other than a novelty like hot air balloons until now, when it was being used in a military application for the first time at the behest of Pazziate. The first fight was the Battle of the Northern Mountains, which in reality occurred at the base of this mountain range. A combined arms force of Avarignians came flooding over the border, meeting an entrenched southern Avarignian force nearly double their size, armed with mortars and machine guns. Despite this numerical advantage, it was not a fair fight for the monarchists, as the air support bombed their trenches and armored columns ran roughshod over them, causing a general rout as the invading infantry picked them off from afar. Soon, the Avarignian army carved a hook to the sea, surrounding the enemy capital of Oran, and taking it in short order. Rex Tarkhan, having anticipated this, was not in the city, and proceeded to wage a brutal desert war against the Avarignian invaders, relying on surprise assaults and ambushes to achieve his victories. Unfortunately for him, this simply did not translate into a meaningful strategy. While his soldiers were more numerous, they wore light cotton uniforms and caps, and were armed with bolt-action rifles and a single grenade each, with minimal armored vehicle support and no air wing. Meanwhile, the Pazzi military government had been hard at work, equipping the Avarignian infantry corps with cartridge-fed rifles, steel helmets, and 3 grenades per soldier. The difference in equipment was immense, but the training divide was even broader, with the strict regimentation which defined the program of the Pazzi military government being completely absent from the training of the South Avarignian soldier, often a farmhand or city urchin trained only to ride a horse and fire a gun. As such, by October of 1939, South Avarignia fell, and Rex Tarkhan and Dechitas Deostum fled, taking his supporters and his meager navy to the faraway ports of Zerotherma, where they founded the pirate band called the Spiritza Perthi. or bastard lords, operating independently and not taking sides in the Civil War. They would come to be the only internationally active pirate band during the Zarathermite Civil War, harrying Avarignian shipping vessels almost exclusively. Upon the annexation of South Avarignia, in line with Pazi ideology, a variety of reforms began to take place there, as they had already in the mainland, mostly at the direction of Paziate. Overall, Pazism in practice can be broken down into two sections: economic and non-economic, of which the latter is of vastly greater ideological importance. In economic terms, the state is used as a cudgel to break the political power of business, relegating them to purely economic entities, beholden to a variety of laws and regulations concerning their operation. The prior order of the day, under the monarchy, was that free trade and enterprise was largely unfettered and unregulated, internally controlled via a system of trade guilds, save for a few especially influential businesses which called themselves crown enterprises. These enterprises were chosen by the monarch and were either considered experts in the field in forming policy decisions or ingratiated themselves with the monarchy via corruption, given the ability to influence policy in a way which made doing business that much easier. Pazism put a stop to that, nationalizing the crown enterprises and arresting their chief operators. These now nationalized crown enterprises included the monopolies on coal, oil, steel, electricity, and water. After this first step, a flood of other measures came down the pipe. A minimum wage was set for Avarignian workers nationally, which was to be tied to inflation. Maternity and even paternity leave were guaranteed in order to promote a higher birth rate. The government dissolved the Central Crown Bank, replacing it with a state credit union that didn't engage in profit-seeking measures. Interest rates on loans were capped. Financial speculation against certain goods was banned. Formed a national workers' union called the Eplasan, literally meaning the workers' union, which negotiated with employers and had the backing of forceful government contract enforcement. Subsidized a flurry of essential businesses, especially if they were in competition with foreign companies, adopting a policy of propping up domestic businesses in order to assure victory abroad. And finally, a state work program was rolled out, putting millions of unemployed people to work building bridges, roads, schools, and houses, as well as codifying unemployment benefits and old age pensions by the age of 65. These transformed society, but the non-economic policies did so even further. First, a system of racial citizenship was enacted, called the Zikne Raznea, or the Sign of the People, which consisted of 4 levels. First was the rank of Raznea, people who had 3 or more Avarignian grandparents. These people were considered full members of the race, so long as all 4 grandparents were of broadly European descent. If any were not, they were automatically subject to the lowest rank. A citizen who received the rank of Raznea was eligible for a series of benefits, including fully subsidized healthcare, preferential credit loans, debt forgiveness, preferential hiring, access to government jobs, military command positions, access to select medical specialists, preferential organ recipient status, tax breaks, and fully subsidized schooling up to bachelor's level accreditation. They were allowed to marry within their own rank, or 1 rank below, but the initiator of the relationship in this case must be the higher rank and male. Second was the rank called Alpha Hus 1, meaning half-man, consisting of those with 2 Avarignian grandparents, so long as all their grandparents were of broader European descent. If they were not, they were automatically subject to the lowest rank. A citizen who received the Alpha Hus 1 rank had access to some benefits, including tax breaks, debt forgiveness, and partially subsidized medical care, as well as broadly being considered a brother in the race, if not a full member, thusly receiving baseline equal, if not preferential, treatment. They were eligible to marry within their rank or above their rank if a proposal is received from a higher rank male to a lower rank female. If such a marriage occurs, then the female receives the new rank of the suitor, and her children are considered of that rank as well. Then, Alpha Hus 2 was for those who had no Avarignian grandparents, but still 4 grandparents of broadly European descent. Alpha Hus 2 received no special benefits, and they were often marked for deportation. If they proved themselves, though, and earned their keep to stay, they were subject to warrantless searches and military drafts, as well as being automatic organ donors. However, if they proved their valor in combat, they were eligible to move up to Elfahus 1. They were eligible to marry within their rank or above their rank if a proposal was received from a higher rank male to a lower rank female. If such a marriage occurs, then the female receives the new rank of the suitor, and her children are considered of that rank as well. Finally, the fourth and lowest rank was known as Nikneth, meaning lower heart. Those who received the rank of Nikneth were those who had one or more non-European grandparents. Upon receiving such a rank, it was almost immediately a sentence of either deportation, forced labor, or in many cases death. They were not eligible for marriage at all, even between themselves, with sterilization mandatory for all under the age of 20. Other non-economic policies included border walls erected at the frontiers, backed by lethal force, obscenity laws with the death penalty carried for prostitution, as well as for the production of pornography, the banning of the Simulchian cult in favor of the ancient gods, the founding of an interconnected national public school and university system, which educated the students of the land with the glory of the nation and the power of their race, a government-sponsored program of architectural renovation and public beautification in the form of the Architectural Ministry, a government-sponsored program of archaeology and historical research in the form of the Archaeo-Historical Institute, making so-called degenerate art into an offense punishable by public caning, which also fell under the purview of the Architectural Ministry, making unapproved relations between different Zikne ranks a crime punishable by death, banning left-wing parties and publications, passing a wide variety of animal cruelty laws which mandated the humane treatment of animals and livestock, upgraded the punishment for sexual assault to castration, and made it illegal to burn the flag or books of national significance. These were the defining policies of the Pazzi military government, though there were many others, and only time would tell if their implementation would come to bear sweet or bitter fruit. Meanwhile, across the Mediterranean and Phrygia, discontent was brewing. Inflation had gotten out of control, and the state was using force to keep people working in many instances, especially in agricultural settings. Inflation had reached 5,000%, and prices were rising minute to minute, and nearly 40% of the nation was unemployed, even with so many people forced to work. This was racking up quite the death toll by August of 1939, past the mark of 15,000 dead. It was in that month that, erupting from the lowest parts of society, the Velocifist rebels staged roughly 24 prison breaks, overtaking a quarter of the country, taking much of mountainous Anatolia under their leader, Comrade Yorgos Boras. This initiated the August Revolution, which is known by another name as the Phrygian Civil War. To the east, in 1940, Perugia, Bax, and Ordovicia formed the Northern League, an alliance designed to resist aggression from all sides. Serdia also began to mass troops on the border with Phrygia, prepared to take matters into its own hands if the civil war began to go in favor of the Velocifists. In 1941, the Wotansloa, consisting of Norland, England, and Iskland, declared a joint war on Britannia, with the Modigbanan playing a key role in the conflict. Ultimately, Britannia found itself woefully underprepared and was relegated to Alba in the north, while Iskland annexed Hibernia, and England re-established itself in the south, though fighting would continue through 1942. Then, in the Far East, the breakdown began. First, Gaizhou, burdened by colonial expenses and land which yielded little of its wealth, suffered an economic collapse, and various factions vied for power in a four-way civil war. Then, Shaojin began to ideologically spiral. Indeed, if Shaojin lost, the seat of God's church in the center of Asian civilization, and God cannot lose, then God must not exist. This led to various factions vying for control of the country, including a faction inspired by Pazism and Daji thought, synthesizing an ultra-ethno-nationalist ideology which saw the collective race as God, known by the name of Zhangzu Huangguan, meaning racial crown thought, and a Velocifist faction, which saw Chinese civilization and the Christian religion as the most evil, ruinous set of ideals, calling for their wholesale destruction as an identity, both as a way to repent to the world they dominated, and as a way to achieve the global utopia of perfect equity, this latter ideology known by the name of Zisha Changsheng, or suicidal rebirth. Surrounding Shaojin, the beleaguered members of the Soxi League kept watch, and quietly awaited an opportunity to humble their proud neighbor. as they themselves suffered internal disunity and widespread famine. Indeed, the 1940s were inaugurated with 1,000 ideologies and 1,000 reasons to kill. For many, it seemed as though civil society was falling apart at the seams, and for others it seemed as though the world itself was entering a period of unending war. The waters are rough, and the future is not clear. For some, a starless, moonless, perilous time for human history, a night of inky blackness which threatens to undo all that man has so far achieved. For others, these are merely the birthing pains of a new world about to crest over the horizon, and christen mankind anew on principles which finally, truly make sense, and reflect the striving of the human heart towards the things which transcend us, making us more than what we are.